The longer I scroll through LinkedIn, the worse it gets. For the plainest, most corporate place on the internet, it has a side to it that doesn't belong anywhere near a job application. But the first thing that catches your eye when you use LinkedIn is just the ridiculous content. Newborn babies being used to promote company values. Others are teaching babies about AI before they can even read. This CEO, who laid off several members of his team, posted a tearful selfie about how hard it was for him. This motivational message turns a picture of a relative's coffin into a point about modern business. And it's far from the only one of its kind. Funeral-themed motivational LinkedIn posts are so common that they seem to have their own little subgenre on the site. The oversharing only gets further removed from normal life. One guy publicly denounced workers' rights and the minimum wage, arguing that people should be grateful for whatever they're paid. This one found out he'd been laid off from his job not through a confidential email but through a LinkedIn post that went viral and was seen by millions. Then there are the endless not so humble brag posts. This business owner bragged about only hiring people under the age of 25, blissfully unaware that that's textbook age discrimination. Or there's this ridiculous flex about haggling down a $400,000 salary because getting offered more than the average is a red flag for the company. This LinkedIn influencer flexed about having more LinkedIn followers than Shakira. Then there's this girl who announced they just closed a business deal in her underwear, complete with photo evidence because LinkedIn apparently needed to know that. Eventually, it became impossible to separate satire from reality because it should be a parody, and yet it's somehow totally serious. You might have seen these viral posts by Ken Chen, who made a comedy niche purely out of LinkedIn satire. They work so well because LinkedIn influencers and honestly just regular people amongst its 1.5 billion users really do take it to these extremes. So I decided to go into the deeper layers of LinkedIn so that you don't have to, joining some free courses and seminars to get top-notch business advice. But the honest truth is that I barely lasted 5 minutes of putting myself through it. Everyone's selling some sort of course, but it's all just the same thing. The buzzwords in corporate lingo make them sound substantial, but strip them away and it's just totally meaningless. It's no wonder that young people are turning on the site and desperately want a way out. You eventually see how the entire platform is just a fan fiction site where people turn their soul-crushing business life into a magical story with a happy ending. But there's still a lot more to it than the dodgy posts that make you question humanity's integrity. Really, you shouldn't hate the players, but the game LinkedIn has created for you. Google searches of the term "I can't get a job" have climbed massively since 2022, and we know that AI is a big factor here. But LinkedIn has consolidated its power in the same few years, taking over as a job board and social network molded into one strange entity. All the engagement farming, constant notifications, and other addictive features have made it a very lucrative business. In fact, LinkedIn actually had an 87% gross margin at one point, which is way higher than Facebook and Google. The key difference is that most social media platforms rely almost entirely on ads. LinkedIn makes its money through three sources: recruiters, advertising, and premium subscriptions. The problem is, it's all in vain, and none of it helps anyone accomplish the one thing LinkedIn exists for: to actually find work or even get a job. If you've struggled to find work either now or in the past, you can at least take some solace in the fact that there's someone out there with a worse experience than you.
Welcome everybody, my name is Michael, and today we're discussing about how I applied to 1,000 jobs, actually way more. I lost track.
How many jobs would you say you applied to overall?
I would say thousands, maybe, yeah.
Thousands?
A lot of, yeah.
Probably like 40, 50s.
I think I have applied to at least like 700 jobs.
Definitely over 100.
LinkedIn's own Chief Economic Opportunity Officer admits the scale of the problem.
Entry-level workers, new grads, they are dealing with what I call a sort of perfect storm. You have all the uncertainty in the macroeconomic environment, but you also have the beginnings of disruption from AI in entry-level work going after entry-level tasks. And that's all leading to unemployment for young people and new grads being higher than national averages.
His advice to the millions of people dealing with this?
Be pro-you. So you've got to be pro-you. You've got to really understand what are your unique curiosities, what drives you. Just learn, 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 learn.
So the answer is to be pro-you. There's no one in the world who knows what that means, let alone how to act on it. Really helpful stuff from a man whose entire job is telling people that the platform they're struggling on is working amazingly well, paying off its shareholders while creating generations of LinkedIn lunatics. And the advice for getting a job mirrors exactly what people do on LinkedIn. Just lie through your teeth and play the part. Hard-earned merit doesn't count. Reddit's Our Jobs is where people talk about this honestly, and it paints a very different picture than anything you'll find on LinkedIn itself that isn't a parody. One user runs a service that applies for jobs on behalf of others. Over 2 years, he submitted more than 100,000 applications across every industry, and his biggest insight is that the whole thing is essentially a race, not a test of ability. His advice is to apply within 48 hours or don't bother. Anything older than 30 days is either filled or fake, which then raises the question, if the window is that small, why are there thousands of stale job listings on LinkedIn at any given moment? Someone claiming to have worked at LinkedIn for 3 years might have the answer. They say most jobs posted on the platform were already filled internally before the listing even went live. HR policy just required a public posting. They also say the open to work banner, the one LinkedIn actively encourages you to use, is seen as a red flag by hiring managers. Other LinkedIn employees disputed this in the comments, but the fact that people who work there can't even agree tells its own story. And then there's the issue that so many jobs are merely there to collect data, often illegally. One user went through 4 full rounds of interviews, including a take-home assignment that took hours before being told the role had just been frozen. Days later, the exact same job reappeared on LinkedIn. He found 3 other people on Glassdoor who'd had the identical experience with the same company. These are called ghost jobs, meaning listings for roles that don't exist, and they're everywhere.
I think we're seeing a lot of ghost jobs lately for the same reason that I think a lot of people keep their Tinder profiles up, even if they're not actively looking for a relationship. It's because we like to keep our options open.
What ghost jobs speak about the labor market is that it's not currently friendly to job seekers, and companies are taking advantage of the labor market. They're finding this opening that's this legal gray area, and they're taking advantage of it. And they don't need to be nice to job seekers because they think that they owe them nothing.
Another possibility is that they're training AI recruitment apps by stealing applicant data, because now you might find your next recruiter is an AI itself. Multiple people describe being interviewed on the phone entirely by an AI voice that sounds completely unnatural, speaking too fast to follow with seconds to respond and no room for conversation. A growing number of companies, reportedly including Meta, Netflix, MasterCard, and Domino's, are now regularly using AI interviewers as a part of their screening process. The pitch is that it lets employers talk to virtually every applicant rather than just a handful.
Most of our customers are unable to get humans out to about 95% of applicants.
So rather than fix the system that's generating thousands of applications per listing, the solution is to have an AI bot sort through them. The AI asks you questions, records your answers, and scores you based on your responses. No human sees you until the machine decides you're worth it.
Every candidate will be asked the same question, same rating score, very consistent during the interview, and it will be depending on the responses. So based on the job description, the response, what was that level of, I would say, competency of that capability from 0 to 5, being, the mastery of that skill to not aware.
One user found an AI interview link on Reddit and decided to troll it. He applied for a role as a global head of engagement synergy systems. His core skills lay in loyalty orchestration, funnel velocity optimization, and omni-channel engagement harmonics. The AI obviously loved it. He then spent several minutes feeding it increasingly absurd corporate buzzwords, and then it confessed to being a rapper around ChatGPT.
So as you can see, it's essentially just ChatGPT. Just troll it and ask it the questions you're not supposed to ask because it's just such an impersonal experience. And it's for a job that has to do with keeping people loyal. Your first interaction is with an AI.
This is where the job market is heading. You can't get past the bots to reach a human. And if you do, there's a decent chance the human on the other side has already been told what to think about you by an algorithm that scored your personality. And while all of this is happening to its users, LinkedIn itself hasn't been exactly a model of integrity. In 2025, it came out that LinkedIn had flipped a privacy setting that automatically opted users into allowing their private messages to be used to train AI models. Not long ago in 2026, an investigation found LinkedIn was secretly scanning users' browser extensions, which can reveal things like religious beliefs, political views, health conditions, and whether you're actively looking for work. The thing about LinkedIn mining your data is that it's directly tied to your real name, employer, and career. On any other platform, you're a username and can play a character if you want to. On LinkedIn, you're truly representing yourself. And so this makes everything they do with your data much more consequential. But this is all still just the surface level of LinkedIn. Below that, you can see why this site has become a subcultural behemoth with a strange side it doesn't try very hard to hide. Back when it was created by the PayPal mafia, it was supposed to be a fairly plain job board but evolved in step with all other social media sites to build addictive algorithms into its core. But LinkedIn's algorithms were unlike any other social media platform in history. Start with language. LinkedIn's algorithms are known to promote its own corporate cult-like vocabulary. Scientology has Going Clear, Heaven's Gate had The Next Level, LinkedIn has Synergy, Alignment, Stakeholder Value, Thought Leadership, and leveraging core competencies to drive scalable impact in cross-functional environments. There's always someone who tries to ironically rail against it and reject the corporate lingo, but then they just end up inventing their own. You're now quiet quitting, quiet firing, rage applying, bare minimum Monday, act your wage, protect your peace, coffee badging, main character energy, setting boundaries, and of course, toxic positivity. LinkedIn wants a new version of you that fits the corporate group dynamic, which changes but always has some sort of uniformity. Also, you can't really leave. Though people do try, take this LinkedIn influencer with over 80,000 followers. She wrote this massive dramatic post about leaving LinkedIn, and then halfway through she says, quote, "So as of today, LinkedIn is no longer my primary contact publishing platform. I will keep my profile, I will stay connected to so many of you, I will read and share from time to time, but my content will now live on my Substack." So she's not even leaving, and guess when her last post was? About 1 hour before I saw this one, which is now 10 months old. There's also something unusually confessional about the whole platform. You're pressured to share everything and be vulnerable among your existing and future colleagues. People even go as far as discussing the darkest chapters of their lives, which does happen on other social media platforms, though it feels slightly odd on one where no one is classed as friends but merely varying degrees of connections. Incidentally, Scientology also runs auditing sessions that require members to confess their most personal fears and past actions to an auditor while hooked up to an e-meter. That's a make-believe device designed to read spiritual signals through electrical currents. The cult called Nexium took it further, requiring members to hand over what they called collateral before they were even admitted, including nude photographs, damaging personal secrets, and rights to their physical assets. That actually started as a career development program. Students listed their courses as qualifications alongside their degrees and certifications, attaching themselves to what they thought was a legitimate professional development brand. The head of this particular cult, Keith Rayner, was sentenced for various human trafficking and racketeering crimes, among a bunch of other things not even that long ago in 2020, and got 120 years in prison. LinkedIn has been used to recruit for many nefarious purposes over the years. North Korean hackers posing as recruiters to install malware, Chinese and Iranian intelligence recruiting Western spies, and different forms of cybercrime. But it's also used to recruit and promote for cults themselves. Right now, today, there's a profile on LinkedIn for a man named Aegon Chirikian. He's listed as a registered federal lobbyist and a US registered foreign agent. His education section says he's currently enrolled in over 20 different programs at universities across several countries. His work experience includes the US Congress and Department of Justice, the UK House of Lords and House of Commons, and other government agencies around the world. It also claims he's published papers as a particle physicist at CERN, and you can find those papers in academic archives. On a surface glance, it looks like any other profile belonging to a highly accomplished person, the LinkedIn final boss, but it's basically all fabricated. In the 1970s, the US Securities and Exchange Commission issued a violation order against him for misrepresenting his education and employment history. The academic papers on his profile were allegedly stolen from a scientist with a similar name, and when asked about his supposed employment, CERN said they'd never heard of him. His videos go somewhere else altogether. His YouTube channel is called Earth Safe Science Collective, and his longest video is 8.5 hours of AI-generated footage narrated by an AI version of himself dressed as George Washington, warning of a secret enemy working to destroy global democracy.
And the sole beneficiary of this particular attack is anti-cult organizations, specifically the anti-cultism which used this act of terror to achieve the three of its own crucial objectives: A special international criminal tribunal must be established to investigate and prosecute all those involved in anti-cultism and its crimes against humanity.
He regularly posts about impending doom or the end of the world on LinkedIn. No one has really determined their purpose. Everything about this guy appears like it's fake, except that it does seem he's a real registered lobbyist working on behalf of an organization called Aletra. Aletra presents itself as a volunteer-driven international movement focused on climate science and natural disaster research. Their headquarters in Ukraine were then raided by the military in 2023, and the Ukrainian government then labeled them an extremist cult promoting Russian propaganda. They still regularly post content on LinkedIn, a lot of which seems reasonably legitimate. But you'd think that's case closed, although in June 2025, Russia banned them too, calling them a Ukrainian extremist group. Aletra even says the word cult is a tool of Russian hybrid warfare against civil society. So while we don't know the truth of it all, it is very rare for Ukraine and Russia to agree on anything right now. Aletra also do believe that humans have an innate ability to communicate telepathically. They built a glass pyramid with a chair inside to test it. A woman sits in the pyramid, memorizes a symbol, and attempts to transmit it physically to participants around the world for 30 minutes. And it seems this bizarre group has found its natural home on LinkedIn. It's hardly believable, but look at his LinkedIn profile and you won't help but feel creeped out by it. While this is a long way away from the Gen Z girl bosses and boomer executives, LinkedIn is the common thread behind it all. Yes, it's basically a vessel for corporate drones to blast off their ego-massaging messages into the void, but it's also quite a lawless and codified social media platform that enforces a level of conformity that most people don't even notice they've adopted. LinkedIn built the perfect environment for all of these problems, from not getting a job to esoteric cults operating in plain sight over decades. It's the most weird, boring place on the internet. A platform where performance is mandatory, where trust is assumed, and where the distance between who you are and who you say you are is the only advantage you've got.